Lucky for us, Figma does a lot to make handoff to developers super easy. Let me show you quick how to toggle into dev mode so that you can see what they see. So here next to the share button, you can see this toggle. So if we toggle it on, now we're in dev mode. And so when you're in dev mode, you can see a lot of things that you can't see in design mode. So let's just click on this frame here and check out everything that we can see. So the layout, we can see the height and width of the frame. We can see what colors are used, what components are used, but this gets definitely more powerful as we go deeper. So let's click on one of our components here. And we can actually see a lot of different things. So we can see what component is being used, what variants are being displayed. And if you open it in the playground, developers can actually look through all of the different variants of this component, which is really nice. They can also see how much padding you have, a lot of different layout settings and colors and assets, and they can go ahead and export them right from here. Let's click on a little text box so that you can see how detailed this gets for developers. It tells you exactly the size and line height, the color, the font family, size, font style, font weight, font height, and pretty much anything that the developer would need to know about this, which is really great. So gone are the days of these really intense sort of style sheets created by designers where we have to outline all of this stuff by typing it out. So what do designers need to do when it comes to handing off to developers? Honestly, this day and age, not a whole lot. But there are a couple tips that I'll share that you can keep in mind when it comes to working with the developer. Number one is make sure they understand the flow. Where does each button take you? Sometimes I will actually get on a call with the developer and go through a flow and show them the prototype or show them exactly what I'm thinking in terms of how screens will move from one to the next. For something like this e-commerce site, it is pretty obvious because we've all used e-commerce sites in the past, so there's not a whole lot of reinventing the wheel going on here, and a developer will look at this and have a pretty good idea of how to build it in terms of what the flow should look like. But sometimes if you're building something a little bit more complex, it might be helpful to add headings above your different flows or even descriptors to make sure that a developer can understand the purpose of the flow and exactly what a user needs to be able to get done, how each screen moves to the next, and so on. Of course, this is also where prototyping comes into play. So I often don't even need to have an actual live call with a developer. I can just send them the prototype and they can get a good idea of how that interaction should feel. Which brings me to number two, make sure your developers also understand the different micro interactions that you've included in your designs. Things like different button states are pretty much taken care of because as you saw over here in the playground, a developer can go through and look at all of the different variants that you have for a component. So they can see the default state, the hover state, the pressed state, and so on. But for more intricate interactions, such as our add to cart interaction, it's really important that a developer fully understands how you want this to look. I always make sure that I'm available and paying attention to Figma comments after I've handed off designs to developers. That's because I want to give them the opportunity to ask me questions and challenge me on things that might be difficult to build so that we can come to a compromise. In the next lesson, I'll go over how you can export assets right from Figma.